Good morning, folks. Welcome to Coffee with Artists. It is Friday. My name is Rachel Wilkins. Super excited to be here and super excited about my guest today. I'm joined by the wonderful Shawna Stroup Billet, joining us from Houston this morning. Shawna, welcome. It's great to have you.
Good morning. It's so great to be here.
So you are a mixed media artist. You are joining us from Houston, but you originally are from Northeast Ohio. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Ohio in the Midwest.
Oh, it's a great experience. I grew up in a small town, had a lot of support from my family, wanted to go to art school, ended up moving to Cleveland, Ohio, and attended school there. Just was always very active in the arts and in sports and also in nature. I grew up on the lake, and so, just being around beauty and everything that would be inspiring to me was a great opportunity and experience that I'm forever grateful for.
When did you first realize that you had a passion for art? Did you find that you were somebody who was creating from a very young age? Were you exposed to that in your childhood?
Oh, yes. I'm highly influenced by my mother's side of the family. My mom is very creative, my grandmother, my aunts and uncles. So I've always been really interested in art, very creative. I took a lot, I was able to go to a couple art centers and take classes. And then in when I was ready to go to college, my family was really supportive and said, "You need to do it. You need to, pursue the arts." And so that's what I majored in and minored in education, and it was a great opportunity for me.
It's amazing how impactful the words of a supportive parent or a supportive teacher or somebody who is kind of championing you can be on your career, on your life as a whole. I read from your website or from an interview, I believe, that you had a particular professor that really spoke to you, really inspired you, really pushed you outside of your boundaries. Can you tell us a little bit about how that relationship impacted you?
Yes, absolutely. First and foremost, my parents, they always pushed me, and going to college and being with this professor, and I'm going to say his name's Harry Eisenhower. He's a good friend. Harry's a great guy. I still idolize him, and he was just such an influencer. He created art in the classroom, and he pushed me when my work was weak. And still to this day, we're good friends. He was at my wedding, which is such an amazing thing in my life. Sorry, I'm getting emotional, I guess.
Beautiful.
But he's so impactful, to keep pushing his students. He doesn't only do that with me. I see that he does that with his other students that he has. And I think that's what makes a great teacher, somebody that constantly pushes you. And I mean, to this day, he's looking at my artwork on social media, and he makes comments, and we talk sometimes. And that's the teacher I want to be. I'm an educator in a high school. I teach 9th through 12th grade, and I hope I can only impact my students like that. But every day I strive to be better. I know I have a lot more room to grow as an artist. And yeah, I'm lucky. I have all these supportive networks in my life, definitely.
That's a really beautiful story. Thinking about the idea of somebody pushing somebody and challenging them on something perhaps not being good enough. It's a very kind of fragile line to tread, really, like to kind of, especially with a certain age group of children.
Mm-hmm.
How do you today as an educator balance that?
Oh, I teach art 1 all the way through AP art. And every day I'm trying to foster and develop that confidence. I think you just need the confidence to be able to, create, to feel like you can share your work with others. Um, and I feel once I developed that strong relationship with the students, and I learned that from that professor that took the time to ask me, how are you doing? That one little question, how are you doing today? Or, outside of the art world, makes a big difference. Connecting with people, I think that's the biggest challenge in teaching. If you can connect with them in some level, get to know them, I think you can be a successful teacher. And I'm sure I have lots of room to grow in that area too. And I'm sure I make a lot of mistakes, but I try my very best to, show the kids I care about them. And then from that point, it's time for us to see what you can do as an artist, push those boundaries, see what you can do,
It's often about stepping out of that comfort zone, right? Which
Yeah.
is hard to do. But it sounds like Harry, I didn't catch his last name, I'm sorry. Harry
Eisenhower.
Mr. Eisenhower. A big shout out to you if you get to see this. It sounds
I
like
hope so.
It sounds like not only did you have an impact on Shawna as an artist, but also as an educator, which ultimately follows through. And I'm sure you're having an impact on these children's lives as well. So definitely a big shout out to you as an educator. Big shout out to any teachers out there. You are doing frontline work. You're shaping the minds and the hearts and the spirits of these young folks. So bravo. Okay, so he obviously sparked a passion in you for art, but also perhaps for being an educator. Was that the main reason you kind of moved into this area, or was there something else that led you down that path?
Yeah, I think really that was the true reason, because I always thought, oh, I'll get into graphic design or I'll do this, but I really needed that outlet to connect with others. And the way he would approach things, that tough love, making you realize that you need to work harder. I don't know, something resonated with me with that. My dad has the same type of qualities. He's a pusher, and I always admired those that kind of, give you that tough love and say, okay, what can you do more? Don't stop here. You can go a little further with that. So that's always been something that I admired in many people, and I've met several people in my life that have influenced me in that way. But Harry, my father, are good ones, as far as pushing me to achieve my best self.
Do you find that today in your practice, do you see yourself pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone?
Always. And I'm always critiquing myself. I'm always thinking I can grow. If I could be a student again, or for the rest of my life, I would do it, because I just love learning new things and experiencing new experiences. I just enjoy it. It's funny.
So tell us about your education. I see Suzanne here. Hi. First of all, good morning to Suzanne Scott and Mrs. Williams. Big shout out, because we had a very lovely socially distanced hangout last night, and in this kind of time that we're dealing with, it was nice to see some other humans. Thank you, Mrs. Williams, for having us. Thank you, Suzanne and Chris. But Suzanne is asking, where did you study art, Shawna? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I first started at Kent State University, a small branch in Northeast Ohio, with Harry. And then I moved on to Cleveland State University. And that's where I had the opportunity to grow further as an artist. Living in the city, I was able to start exhibiting my work in Cleveland. And that really helped me. That really helped me grow. That got me out of my vulnerabilities as far as, speaking with others about my work, pushing what I had learned from Harry to trying to develop my own voice as an artist. And still to this day, I think that's the biggest struggle, is continuing to develop that voice and to learn more. But Cleveland State University is where I received my degree. I minored in education. I was a drawing and painting major. And then, I moved on to Canton, Ohio for my first teaching job. And I felt like I was prepared to meet my students and give them that experience that I've been exhibiting in my work as an artist, as a teacher, so I felt like I was starting to gain some valuable tools in that setting.
How would you say that over the years that your practice or your approach to work has evolved?
Oh, it's definitely evolved. When I first began, I was really into acrylics, painting with a palette knife, really heavy textures. And I still enjoy that to this day. And I experimented with watercolor. But now, and I think this has really evolved from moving to Houston, I've attended a lot of workshops and different professional development opportunities through my school district. And I've really grown to love mixed media. Mixed media has been my go-to, medium, because I feel like the opportunities are endless. The results are endless, and it's very freeing. I like that.
And you do create a lot of abstract. I also am an abstract painter. And, I think one of the struggles that I have, and I'm sure many, many artists have this struggle, is knowing when something is complete.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find yourself kind of revisiting and, questioning yourself?
Oh, all the time. I create abstract works, and this is again, talking about, my voice as an artist. In the beginning, I started out with a lot of abstract work, and, I never knew when I was done, and I possibly overworked many of those pieces. But then later, as I started to gain a little bit more confidence, and I wanted to develop series of works, I started to hone in and kind of like focus a little bit more on what I was doing. And, I try to find balance between commission work, work that makes me happy, that inspires me, as far as my travel goes, and any other experience that I may encounter. But knowing when to stop and just be satisfied with your work, I think every artist struggles with that.
100%. 100%. So I want to talk a little bit about the validation that we get as artists when we finally put that work out to the world, which, I've interviewed quite a few artists now, and we all have a personal attachment to the work.
Yes.
So when we put it out into the big world, the universe, there is an element of vulnerability that comes with that. Can you share some of your experiences, or perhaps take us back to that very first sale? How did that feel?
Oh, I think that's one of my biggest struggles. It's always like you're allowing a little part of your soul to be exposed to the world. You put yourself out there, and I remember actually going back to Harry Eisenhower. He gave me an opportunity to set up a little art booth at a food and wine festival, and I set up all my work there, and I was just an emerging artist. Nothing real great, was being displayed at the time, but I made a couple sales, and it was an amazing experience as like a 19-year-old student thinking, wow, this could be really beneficial to me in some way. And then as I developed as an artist and as technology evolved and I started putting things out there and showing people what I'm working on and even hitting that button on on your computer to say, okay, I'm going to share this with everybody and waiting for their feedback, it's a very vulnerable experience, whether it's in person or whether it's face to face, so, or online.
What would you say has been some of the most interesting or, I guess, amusing feedback that you've had? Has there been anything that's really took you back a little?
Oh gosh, I was showing in Galveston. I had a abstract piece that, to me, I interpreted as, the waves, the water, and I overheard somebody speaking about my work, and they were a little confused by it. And his wife came by and said, I don't know if I can have that in my house. And I was like, oh gosh, wow. And then you know what? Not maybe 3 hours later, somebody came by and they purchased it. So, you can't really let all that, get to you or, but it's funny. I've learned to kind of enjoy the interpretations of other people. Before I used to get so offended. Oh, why are you saying that about my piece? But, as you spoke about emotional attachment, but at this point, it's what's in here. It's coming out. I create for me. I don't create for anybody else unless it's for commissions. And then I fully put my heart into working for that other person and making sure they're happy. But when it comes to works that I'm displaying in a gallery or, or I'm just creating in my studio, it's for me. And that's what matters. And like I said, I sold that piece and it all worked out.
Yeah, we can't please everybody.
That's true.
I think we have a habit as maybe this is because of the vulnerability. I cannot get that word out this morning. Vulnerability. Okay. Yes. Maybe it's because of that, but we have a habit of hanging on to the critic, right? Hanging on to the negative feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of tape, we'll play that tape, but forgetting all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that we do that as creative people?
Again, I think it's going back to empathy. It's going back to, that whole vulnerability and insecurities. You kind of revert back to being a child and saying, am I worth it? Is this piece worth showing, or is this my soul? This is me. And so it's really it's a humbling experience, trying to put yourself out there. And I think we just always revert back to being a child. And one of the things that I get asked all the time, oh, you must really love, talking to people about your work. And yeah, I do. But there are times where I really feel like this is more my soul than it is for anybody else. So it's tough. It's tough.
And I wonder if that goes back to education, because, when you think about what is celebrated in education, right? It's the academics, it's the math, it's the science, it's the, whatever else, English, all of the academic kind of subjects are what is kind of celebrated as success. We look at art as like, the secondary subject. That's nice. It's good that you can do that. Because when I think about, like, for example, my wife is a lawyer. Like, when she puts a brief out, I don't think she has an emotional attachment to that. I don't think she's given me a look that says maybe. But I don't think her worth is wrapped up in that brief. Whereas I think us, it's so much of our self-worth is in that work. And I wonder if that goes back to education. because we're told that this is not the, the barometer of success.
Right. Yeah. I I think it's a valid point. Luckily, since moving to Houston, I've been in a fantastic school district. Houston is huge on art and supporting young artists, and of course, Texas. My students compete in competitions and they are thriving. They're winning these competitions and they are getting recognition. And that was something I don't think every school district celebrates, and I'm very fortunate that I've kind of landed myself in a school district, which my previous school district as well really pushed me and allowed me to bring the arts into that school. But you have to have the right people that really support that. And luckily I am in the right place. They really push for those student opportunities. And, they are so fortunate to be able to get exposed at such a young age and develop, as artists, young artists. And so,
And
absolutely.
Houston is such a great city. I remember the first time I went out there for our show, I was so surprised. Like I guess my expectation of what Houston was, or what I thought it would be, oil town. It's probably very, right. Lots of tall buildings and open spaces, and not going to be anything like culturally rich. And I'm so taken aback. I remember just walking around the downtown area the first day I got in, and not only is there incredible public art, there's a lot of really amazing sculptures outside some of these buildings, and a lot of just, you can tell there's an investment in bringing art to the people.
Yes, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoy visiting our museums. Mm-hmm. I can't wait till we get back to the place where we can visit those places, but we have such a nice array of art celebration throughout the community. Our murals are beautiful. Just it's an art town for sure.
And I see James. Good morning, James, or good afternoon. Good to see you. James is mentioning the Rothko Chapel. Have you had a chance to get there?
Oh, that is on my list. That is one of the places I have not visited, and I am very much wanting to go. Just have heard amazing things about the Rothko Chapel.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to get there. I did spend a day at the Museum of Contemporary Art, which was amazing. I got to I always forget this guy's last name, but it was a hyper-realist sculptor who creates these huge, like oversized, just kind of naked, beautiful, and then very small sculptures.
Yes, I can't think of the name right now, but I know what you're speaking of.
Ron or Rob is his first name. But we'll find out and we'll put it in the comments. Somebody,
yes.
You can let me know in the comments if you know who I'm talking about. Amazing, amazing sculpture. But yes, incredible city, very vibrant, a lot of great personalities in Houston as well. A lot of great art. I really, really enjoy my time when I get to go out there for the shows. What brought you to Houston? What was the catalyst that got you out there?
Yeah, my husband had an opportunity for work, and he had a couple different places, and I think one was Arizona and the other one was Houston. And I said, let's try Houston. I think that would be good. And we came here, and we didn't know too many people that were in the Houston area. And for both of us, it's been an amazing experience. We've really enjoyed it.
So now your husband is French. He's from Paris.
Yes.
That must have afforded some amazing travel opportunities. Tell us a little bit about your time in France, in Paris.
Oh, well, I'm very fortunate. My husband is amazing support. He has wonderful parents. My father-in-law just passed away last year, which was really hard. But Sorry.
Okay.
But I'm very lucky. I have wonderful in-laws, and they've taken us to many places, not just the tourist attractions that you normally see of Paris. One of the wonderful experiences I get to experience was going to Giverny in France, a small village where Monet's garden was, and that was really memorable to me, amongst many castles and other beautiful areas, Brittany, for example. But yes, uh, Perigo, we've been very fortunate to have wonderful travel guides as my in-laws and my husband's parents. So, and they're just great people and always very supportive and want me to experience as an artist everything that would connect to me the most in the most authentic way.
You know, I too am obviously I'm married to a US citizen, and I'm originally from Europe. And, you know, it's fascinating to me. You know, we've been together a long time, almost 9 years, almost a decade actually. And you know, there's still some little cultural things that come up, and we're like, oh, that's totally different. That's a different experience, or we have different words for that.
Yes.
For you, obviously, it's a totally different language. But what are some of the, I guess, the interesting experiences like that you've perhaps had?
Oh, I would have to say I truly enjoy the slower pace.
Mm.
I love sitting at the dinner table with my mother-in-law cooking and having the conversations with the family, although everybody must translate for me a lot at times. But I love the culinary experience. I love learning about all things, you know, that my brother-in-law and my husband have grown up with, and you know, traveling the streets and looking at the beautiful architecture and the old style. It's just an amazing experience, you know.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we still at this point. There's just a couple of words that'll come out of my mouth, and my wife's like, "What? I've never heard you call this." We thought we'd covered them all by now, by spending a decade together, but no. But I feel very privileged that I get to take my wife back to Europe and show her my kind of culture and get to travel. And there's such a richness to Europe that obviously the US has many amazing things to offer, but there's this history and this richness, this culture that you can't match. It's amazing.
Yes. And I think my family over there, they find enjoyment with me seeing an artwork for the first time in person, or or experiencing a new cuisine that I've never even thought I would enjoy, but it becomes my favorite. And
as long as you're not talking about escargot.
Right. I love it.
Don't do it.
It's so good.
I'm going to take your word for it because I couldn't stomach it. So you talked about community being really important to you, and that you found a community in Houston. How, it's one of those things where we tend as artists to isolate, to put ourselves into this, very solitary environment to create. How do you combat that loneliness, and how has community really helped you with that process?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think a lot of people realize that you are isolating. I'm a type of person that needs to be around people, but when I create, I need to be alone, and I need it to be quiet. And you spend a lot of time by yourself. One of the ways that I found was most helpful was connecting with other artists in the community. I found couple real close friends, and one in particular that I just really gravitated towards. She was very helpful, very supportive, and not competitive. And that's kind of rare in the art world to find people like that. but when you do find them, you got to hold on. They're just the ones that could really push you and, make you keep working as hard as you desire and want to achieve, because they have your back, and I think being part of that art community is very, very important.
And I think when, like you said, when you find your people, like, hold on tight, because unfortunately there are a lot of people who see their fellow, their peers as competition. There's
Yeah.
room for all of us, right? And I think
Mhm.
we kind of lack that today. I almost feel like technology has, as much as it's advanced our ability to reach more people, it's also separated us physically.
Yes. Hmm.
We think about the great art movements over time. There was always this community of, great thinkers and writers and artists and philosophers that kind of gravitated towards each other. But I feel like we see that less and less today.
Yeah, I think so too. My biggest advice is to find those strong people that really have the knowledge and are working just as hard as you. Or maybe even harder. I don't know, but I think you just need to be around that positive energy, and that's gonna help you push on. And it's good to be able to have a conversation with somebody else that may be experiencing the same things as you.
Mhm.
You might be spending many days in your studio and you're working and you're making deadlines. And as glamorous as it sounds to be in the studio, sometimes it can be a bit daunting. It becomes that job, and then you get that person that really pumps you up, and they remind you that you've been doing this for yourself, that it's not a job. This is your life, and you need to make it work. So it's important.
Absolutely. So, we are facing a very unusual time right now where we are, forced into this isolation.
Yes.
We're seeing a lot of advancements, and I think a big push towards, the technology to bring us closer together, at least online. But there's a certain, we all miss that human connection. You
Yeah.
shared with me just before we came on that as an educator, you are having to school online.
Right.
Tell us about that experience and some of the challenges that you're facing right now.
I think, some of the experiences that I'm encountering is that lack of being able to be hands-on with the student, to demonstrate. Every student is different. Everyone learns a little bit differently. As some people might gravitate towards this tech world, other people would rather have their teacher right next to them, showing them alternative ways to approaching the subject that they're working on. And so, I find it difficult. And, the students are going through their own issues right now, emotionally, mentally, trying to process that they may not have prom or they may not have graduation, with the uncertainty is probably very weighing on the student. The whole aspect of not connecting human to human it's hard for me. I find it very difficult, and I want that chance to not just type, "How are you doing?" I want to greet my student and say it face to face and really see their face and see if they are okay, you know?
Have you
So
had the
that,
ability to be able to do that? Are you able to connect at least by video?
yes, so we're able to do that, based on video, email, all different aspects through a Google Classroom, but it's not the same thing, as being in the classroom with the kids. And, they need their peers. They, like we were just talking about, finding those individuals that push you, that motivate you, that want you to grow. That happens in the classroom too, and those kids need each other. They need to see that, I may be 17, 18 years old, and I'm still developing my craft, but I can do this. And so it is a challenge. You know, we are motivating and we're trying our best, and I know my kids will do their very best that they could possibly do, you know, but it's a challenge.
How are they doing?
I think they're doing okay, given the circumstance. You know, we will never truly know how they're actually doing, you know, but I think when we are able to see each other and we're able to get back to normal, and that or normal, that will be an enlightening day. That'll be a good day.
You know, I wonder about not just the emotional impact on children, particularly, I mean, of a variety of different ages, but also the developmental impact. You know, will there be, it's pretty much looking like at least a year of homeschooling. Like, how will that impact children? Will that be something that is kind of a challenge for them?
I would imagine so. For some students, it's going to be a challenge. I can assure you, though, that teachers are working harder than ever, and parents are working harder than ever at home. There is not one teacher that is sitting at home thinking, this is great.
Right.
You know, they, I imagine, you know, it is different. It's a different situation for each person, as it is a different situation for each teacher and each parent. So, you know, it's hard to chunk everybody into one particular group, but we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it, and we'll make up for time if that's what needs to be done. Teachers always do that. I don't think a lot of people see that. Or, you know, they have their perceptions, but we work really hard to make sure that the kids have what they need.
I mean, you're essential workers right now, despite the fact that you're not, you know, going to a physical place. You're doing essential work. So we thank you and all the teachers out there for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's talk about commissions, something that you mentioned. I always think it's an interesting conversation because it really takes you out of your comfort zone in a whole different level, right? Because you have to communicate this person's desires, needs, wants. How do you tackle a commission, and how does that conversation look when you're engaging with a potential client?
It's very involved. I'll tell you that I would say that I'm a perfectionist when it comes to making sure that I understand exactly what it is that the client would like. I will ask a million questions. I will ask for 1,000 references. I want all the details. I want to make sure that I'm envisioning exactly what they are, which can be a challenge at times. So it's very involved. There's a lot of conversation involved, but through that conversation, really nice relationships are developed. I've been working on pet portraits for over 10 years now. Kind of got involved with that, with just posting a couple portraits that I had done on the side, and just it caught on, and people really enjoyed that. And so, even though that is such a a different, you know, approach to what I've been working on in my studio, I was able to spend a lot of time getting to know that person, getting to know their memories of their pet, because most often the pet has passed away, and it was such an influential or important aspect of their life. And so you get to hear that really nice story and background. And I put every bit of that knowledge into every brushstroke that I put into my work. You know, I will really resonate and think about every aspect of what they told me about that dog or that cat or that animal. And I try my best to capture that memory for them. And it's an interesting experience. And again, you go back to that vulnerability of when you're finally finished with the piece, to show it to them, because now you have the knowledge of that person and you have the knowledge of the particular pet or that memory. You want to make sure it's perfect.
Mm.
You want to make sure it's just right and that it makes them happy. And I've found a lot of enjoyment in those commission works. Not only do I do the pets, but I do other things as well. And a lot of people will see my other works inspired by nature, and they gravitate towards that. But it's something I enjoy, and I've really mastered over time, and I've enjoyed it.
That's awesome. So you've been in Houston for several years now. Were you around during the hurricane?
Yes, I was around during the hurricane. Luckily, we were not affected by the water, but we were affected in a similar way to the way this COVID is affecting us. Where you feel for so many other people that are struggling. And again, being in the school system and having students or just having friends that had their homes entirely destroyed. It was a very difficult time. And again, being empathetic about the way others are feeling, that was a struggle. That was a really hard time around here.
And I know, one of the things that I noticed, we did do a show not too long after that, where we raised funds for the Fifth Ward, Houston's
Mhm. Yeah.
it always seems to be these, terribly low economic areas that are hit hard because they sit in these low-lying places. Did
Mhm.
you have any students that were perhaps impacted by, how things were in that area, or those that were particularly affected?
Oh yes, I had several, and one of the things I can remember is that their outlet was the arts. They were able to draw and journal and really reflect on what was happening. It was a very trying time for many families, and it was difficult for these students to grasp it and to think about it. It's the same students that I have, that are seniors that are graduating. Not only are they dealing with this, but they did deal with COVID or with the hurricane, and it's a lot. It's
Hmm.
it's a lot,
On top of just general teenage angst and challenges,
right?
hurricane and a worldwide pandemic, that is a lot for folks to take. But I like that you mentioned that art was seemingly a form of therapy to get them through.
Yes, absolutely.
How important is it that we bring art to kids, that we encourage them to express themselves?
I think it's very important. If you know, throughout the country, I think a lot of school districts are, you know, removing the art programs from the schools. We need the arts to encourage kids to express themselves, whether it's theater or dance or it's the visual arts. They need this. I I was that student. I needed this. I needed it to be able to express myself. And so I think it's very important that we continue to push for the arts. And um, I appreciate what you do. And how you try to get out there and really make it known as to what artists are doing. And we need more advocates. We need more people that say our youth needs this, because eventually they become, artists and people that want to thrive, in a business sense.
And I think there's a lot of you know, unfortunately, a lot of mental health problems that are very active in our community: mental health, addiction, depression, anxiety. I mean, it's been a thread throughout several of my interviews, and I feel like
Absolutely.
back to that, that voice that you don't have somebody telling you that what you're doing is valuable, that it's valid, that
Hmm.
it's worthy, you're worthy.
Hmm.
I think we have a great responsibility there to change that narrative. And I think, you're at the front line of changing that. And, as teachers, you have this huge responsibility. How do you navigate that pressure?
The pressure of just making sure that they are able to create. I think all students and all art students should be able to create on the level of where they're comfortable. And then eventually giving them that push, like I said, building that confidence. But when it becomes a therapeutic act, not every student needs to be this grandiose artist,
Right.
but it's just the act of creating that is so important for the mind, the act of experimentation. It, it's it's important. We need to push that in our schools and even in our homes. You know, that small outlet for that creative aspect is important.
It's one of my hopes is that we can start to change the conversation that, an artist is this dramatic figure who is, has to be out of their mind to create and is like a societal dropout. Uh,
Hmm.
and that any other way is considered selling out, right? That you can't be pragmatic, that you can't be business professional, that you can't be savvy, because
Right.
I think it's so damaging. Because really,
Absolutely.
the path, once you are able to create and express yourself through some art form, that can take you so many places. And I think we have this one-dimensional look at the path of
Hmm.
arts, right? That it's just, if you study art and you go to liberal arts school and you do this, the only thing that can come out of it is that you'll be an artist, and you'll be lucky if you can make it, because it's this very oversaturated blah blah blah. Whereas there's so much room in the world for creative thinkers,
Right.
but we just don't celebrate them. And we have to change that mentality of what
Hmm.
artists can bring to many industries, to not just to the art world.
Absolutely.
So I think we definitely have a challenge on our hands, but
Mhm.
folks like you on the front line, and many organizations starting to pop up, and incubator programs that recognize that there's also a need for the business savvy, the business skills, uh,
Mhm.
to to really kind of bring those two things together, and perhaps just take this idea of the starving artist off the table altogether.
Right.
So we are going to jump to some questions in a few minutes. So if anyone has any questions for Shawna, do jump into the comments. I'm seeing a lot of love in the comments for you. Looks like we got your little fan club here, Shawna. So we're going to put some of these out. But if anyone has any questions, please do jump in. Just to circle back to what we just mentioned there, balance, right? It's something I think that so many of us struggle with. How do you balance promoting your art, the business aspect of your art, being a teacher, and creating?
Oh, that's difficult. It's I mean, during the school year, it's 100% about the kids.
Mm.
It's all about them. When I come home, then it's my time, to start working on my pieces over the summer months. When I have a little time away from the other things that I must do for my work, I do spend a lot of time working on my own work and finding inspiration and traveling and going on vacation. And so it is a challenge to find the balance between the two. I wish, at times that I could just fully create all day long.
Mm.
But I know that I'm also influencing young minds, and I am creating in the classroom. So I I weigh them out, and I go with it and just make it work.
Well, amazing. I think you're an inspiration to all of us. So tell us what is next for you? What do you hope? What are your aspirations for your art career?
Oh, like I said, I would be a student any day of the week. I'm going to continue to develop and learn. I do have projects in the works, a post from my commission pieces inspired by my national park travels. I have some really interesting things going on with that that I will later reveal. I'm still in the developmental phases of that, but like I said, I hope to continue to show. I've been fortunate enough to be new to Houston and be able to show in a few places while balancing my teaching career. And I hope I hope to keep developing and still get myself out there and to meet wonderful people like yourself and others that promote, the arts.
Wonderful. Well, we are certainly looking forward to seeing what you do next and just following you on your success. So thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to go to a couple of these comments. So let me go right back here.
Sure.
Gorgeous artwork in the background. I agree that is a beautiful piece. What is the size on that piece? And is it available?
It's 60 by 60, and yes, it's available.
All right. You heard it here first. Actually, give me your website so folks can go check that out. So it's www.
Shawna Stroup Billet.com.
Okay, folks. So the website is right there in the comments. So do check out Shawna's work. Obviously, there are some pieces available.
Yeah.
And we covered this one. Let's see. James says, very nice website. Wilted is wonderful.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that series. I'm still dabbling in that. I sold most of those pieces, so I'm very happy with those works. But thank you very much.
Thank you, James. We have, let's see. Janelle Wilson Sachs says, you are doing wonderful, Shawna. I agree.
That's my best friend.
And I think some other of your fans here, Mary Caruso.
Hi. Hi, Mary.
Oh, that's awesome. We've got your cousin here, Josh.
Oh my gosh, this is so awesome.
And then James, yeah, Houston is a great art town. If you haven't gone to the Rothko Chapel, spend an afternoon. Yeah, that's on my list too. I haven't got that.
On my list. I will definitely do that.
I'm in Houston. I'm going to hit you up and we're going to go together. How about that?
Yes, please. I would love that.
So let's see. Oh, this is a great comment from your aunt. I've always been so envious that you've always known what you wanted to do and you're so incredibly talented.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, love you.
Said from a very early age you've known, and I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Rachel Romano says commendable.
Oh.
We agree. Jesse, okay, we got a question. How do you convince people that the arts are necessary when voting for funding? Some areas barely afford to keep the school functioning. I'm probably arts, by the way. Or I'm thinking I'm pro arts, by the way. And hi, Shawna.
Hi, Jesse. So I think that's difficult because I don't think one person can make that, choice, that difference. But I guess, trying to promote student work and opportunity is the best way, and having that out in our tech world so that others can see what these students are creating in the classroom. And I think that's the best way for others to understand and want to fund our school systems and the arts, just knowing what we're doing, because sometimes you could be very much in the background, and no one has an idea of how much greatness is happening.
Great answer and a wonderful question, Jessie. Thank you. I think we have a long way to go, and we definitely need some strong voices and advocates who are willing to push for the inclusion of these arts programs, because what we're seeing from the federal government is obviously the elimination of the arts endowment, and when the big guns are taking away these things, it certainly filters through to the to the school systems as well. So we just need to be vocal and advocate for the just the power and impact that these arts programs have on children who, even children that do fit in the across the boxes of academia as well, but particularly for those who do not have academic strengths, that they can be very creative and have success that way. So thank you, Shawna. It's been beautiful spending this time with you. Thank you for being so open and for sharing your story with us. It's great to have you. And just let folks know where they can find out more about you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for this opportunity.
So where can people learn about you? So we've got your website, but what about do you want to give your social media a shout out as well?
Oh, sure. I have a Instagram account that's fine art, Shawna Stroup Billet. And then I have a pet art, Shawna Stroup Billet.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Shawna. Great having you. Before we go, I have to give a little special shout out to Jan Phillips, who is a friend of this show and a dear friend of mine. And she sent me this wonderful t-shirt. I have a birthday coming up this weekend, and she sent me this t-shirt, which is a piece that I created for her right a couple of years ago, and she had it put on a t-shirt for me. So I'm super moved and humbled and very grateful, Jan. So thank you for your ongoing support of the show, and thank you so much for the special gift. It means a lot. All right, so Shawna, thank you so much. We will be back on Monday for Coffee with Artists. Looking forward to that. We're going to be joined by Captain Casual, who has a really interesting story. He actually had he died in the back of an ambulance. His heart stopped. He was working in a corporate job, and then when he came out of this coma, he was suddenly an artist, and that's his career path now. So it's going to be a really interesting interview on Monday. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.